What is up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. A couple things before we get into the news today. Falcon McBob actually tweeted, it's now active, remember that account I told you guys about a few days ago about Spyro? It's the official Spyro the Dragon account, and it did tweeted a picture of Crash. So it does look like right now Activision is, they're kind of in the home stretch, and honestly, we could see a Spyro announcement anytime, even today. So, I guess keep an eye out. We're getting to that point. I'm curious to see what they're leading up to here with Spyro. I guess this is going to be, hopefully, a fully rebuilt looking Spyro, and that's the hope. It's kind of like the Crash Insane trilogy, and hopefully it's not too much of a letdown if it's just a basic upscale. I think this much of a build-up, it has to be something awesome like the Crash Insane trilogy, just, for Spyro games. Very exciting to see. Just keep an eye out today. And then I do realize we're getting close to 100,000 subscribers, and I'm going to do my best to live stream and try to catch the moment, I guess, when it's happening. So I guess keep an eye out. I'll try to live stream when that's all happening, and we can, I guess, watch the 100,000 sub marker pop up. That'll be really fun to see. And we do have a lot of stuff to get into today, guys. There might actually be, it's very interesting to see this, might be another Pokemon game coming to the Nintendo Switch after a trademark was filed. We're going to take a look at that. And then, of course, tons of Spider-Man details everywhere. This is awesome. Release date, all kinds of information, guys. With Game Informer, they did a great job. So let's get into it. So we're just going to start right away with Spider-Man. It is coming out September 7th. So actually, around the time a lot of people were kind of picking out, because they probably want to jump ahead of Red Dead Redemption, which a lot of games want to jump ahead of Red Dead Redemption, as we're seeing now with Tomb Raider jumping in there, and then we see Dragon Quest 11, and now we see Spider-Man. Seems like September is actually going to be loaded pretty well, just because everyone wants to get out before Red Dead Redemption. Even Call of Duty jumped to the top of October to get it out in front of that game. So that game being pushed has definitely had an effect on a lot of release dates around it. Kind of interesting to see. But let's take a look at this Spider-Man game, because man, Game Informer did a great job on this coverage. It was awesome. Insomniac told us all kinds of details. We got a really cool looking special edition that's going to show up that looks awesome, and a ton of details. They did this massive, like 100-something question rapid fire interview and told us a ton of details. These details included no microtransactions. That's right, guys. No microtransactions. I was so happy to hear about that. This is a straight up single player experience that's going to be awesome to see. And the map will be several times larger than Sunset Overdrive, something I would kind of expect, as we saw the map in Spider-Man 2 back on the PS2, the Xbox and everything, and it was pretty large there too. Never will be on Xbox, as, we expect. I don't even know that was a question. Tons of extra costumes. They detailed leveling, upgrade system, crafting suits. Then here's the special edition. This is going to be the collector's edition that they do for $150. Has those stickers, as you see, a big Spider-Man statue, custom steelbook, mini art book, has a bunch of pre-order bonus content. They show one, which is the Spidey suit pack there, and you see like the punk Spider-Man, the Spider drone gadget, and then you also receive Spider-Man PSN avatar, a theme, 5 extra skill points. And it's a pretty good looking collection here if you like Spider-Man and you're a big fan. But I mean, $150, that's pretty pricey, we'll say that. And then the box art, of course, looks great as well. This is exciting. I'm really looking forward to Spider-Man. I'm glad it's a September release, because it's closer than if you asked me like last year, when is it going to come out in 2018? I would have said like, November. And then we get closer and I'm like, okay, maybe in August or September. And then we find out the release date and I even wavered into summertime. This is a good release date for it. Now, Dragon Quest will probably suffer a bit because Spider-Man's there. Tomb Raider might actually suffer a bit because Spider-Man is in that month. But still, for people like me who've been looking forward to this game for so long, man, I am looking forward to it. They showed more footage, and it's just, I'm ready. I'm ready for this game. I assume it's going to be E3 as just a final push for marketing. But hey, September 7th, it's not that far away, and I'm just ready to buy this game. Let's get to it. Next up, let's talk about that Pokemon trademark that was a little surprising to a lot of people, because it does kind of point to another Pokemon game going to Nintendo Switch. The trademark does list a home console version for the software, what's the home console that Nintendo has now? It's the Nintendo Switch, because it seems like they're trying to merge their handheld and their home console market together as one system. So of course, that means a lot of their IPs or games that they have on the 3DS or the DS would of course start making its way to the Nintendo Switch, which we're seeing with a lot of games. Fire Emblem going to the Switch, right? Pokemon mainline going to Nintendo Switch. And now it looks like some of the Pokemon spin-offs will, and one was named in this trademark, and that appears to be Pokemon Rumble. And Now, this trademark was spotted by Cerebi and Japanese Nintendo, and what they originally found was Pokemon Scramble, which is the Japanese title for Pokemon Rumble series. Of course, there have been several games now, 4 of them across the Wii, the 3DS, and the Wii U, so it has been on home consoles before, and it looks like the last one that they did have was Pokemon Rumble World in 2015. But what's great about this is it sounds like Nintendo is going to be moving a lot of spin-offs to the Nintendo Switch, and it does seem like the Switch will be getting a pretty large lineup of games if it's going to get the handheld with the 3DS lineup, or DS lineup even, if you go that far back, and all their home console stuff. So the Switch should have, at some point, look, the 3DS, as great as people like that system, but it's going to live out its life eventually, and we will get to a point where they discontinue it, and then most of those games are probably going to move to the Switch. They will eventually, they'll eventually merge all of their creative teams together, and they'll have really one system to work on, and that means you're probably going to get a lot of games coming out pretty consistently, since all their teams will be working on that. I don't think Nintendo is going to do a 3DS successor. It just would seem weird, right, with what they're trying to do with the Switch. So I think at this point, considering people are pointing out Pokeland is a mobile game I guess they're working on, but that has its separate trademark. So this one does look like they're working on a Pokemon Rumble for the Nintendo Switch, and that's going to be cool. I just want to see more of their franchises, I guess, just start to work over to the Switch. People weren't happy with Luigi's Mansion being on the 3DS. I get it. That would have been a really cool, really get to have on the Switch. But hey, look forward apparently to another Pokemon game, Pokemon spinoff. Maybe you get stuff like Mystery Dungeon showing up, right? It's pretty cool to see this, and I do think Pokemon will have a very large presence on the Switch, and not even just the mainline series. All the spin-offs, everything, I think will really make their way over. Next up, let's talk about Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, as we've had a little more information come out about it. Game Explained did a very good job when they went to an event and tested it. They managed to get footage of the load time when you start it up and you play. There is a load time that takes place on the Wii U, and it is pretty lengthy. It's like 15, 16, 17 seconds as they recorded. The Switch version seems to load much faster, so we're getting a lot of improvements from the architecture, from the cartridges, from everything. They've cut that nearly in half at this point, and it's pretty cool to see. It's down to almost 9 seconds. It's like between 8 and 9, down from 17 seconds, and that is pretty awesome. Not only have they dropped the load times, the file size is almost half. It comes in at 6.6 gigabytes on the Nintendo Switch. So if you've been looking at Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze and you missed it on the Wii U, or maybe you played it on the Wii U, it seems like the port that's going to Nintendo Switch is taking advantage of a lot of what the Switch has to offer, with its cartridges being faster load times, or even from the SD card, and the file sizes. Man, the file sizes are so much smaller on the Switch, and I'm very curious how they did that. Some have said that, oh, maybe they compressed some of the video files. It's hard to say. I don't know. We saw Mario Odyssey be like 5 gigabytes. Who knows anymore how they're doing this, but it's very impressive. So I look forward to Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. If you missed it, I think it's worth a pickup. I do think $6 is probably still too much for that game, considering it's like $20 on the Wii U now. But I mean, you're not going to go out and buy a $200 some odd Wii U to then buy the $20 version of it. But I do think $60 is too much when the original came out at $50, but people still buy it. And hey, it'll probably still be a really fun game for people who have played it before, and if you have never played it, it's an awesome game. Next up, let's talk about the Hitman series, because IO Interactive announced they're going to be partnering with Warner Bros. Interactive to come out with the definitive. That's right, they're calling it the Hitman Definitive Edition, and what's interesting about this is it's going to hit retail stores exclusively, probably because you can just download the other episodes and everything anyway, but this is going to be to catch people up, and it's going to come with a bunch of stuff. Now, if you've never played Hitman, this one, it came in episodes, and they kind of split it up for a while, and then eventually they released it as you could buy a disc that had everything. This one seems to be IO Interactive, because remember, they retained the rights to Hitman, and it seems like they've partnered now with Warner Bros. To then distribute Hitman again, probably to make more money since they're kind of on their own now. The new version will include all of the content and updates previously released for the game, as we'd expect, including the Patient Zero campaign, the summer bonus episode, the Blood Money Requiem pack, 3 escalation track contracts, and the game's previously released costumes. The one thing that I noticed that was different about this in the press release and on their site is that the players will also receive new costumes based on 3 different IO Interactive franchises. Kind of neat because they're also going to include Kane and Lynch costumes, Freedom Fighters costumes, and costumes from Mini Ninja. Hitman Definitive Edition is set to be available May 18th, 2018, and it'll be available, of course, on the PS4 and the Xbox One. No word, of course, on Switch versions. That's what everyone always asks. Where's the Switch version? I don't know. They're working on it. They're not working on it. I think they wanted to mostly take Hitman and move him the series forward, and this is just a way to get a little more probably funding and money in by doing a definitive edition since they now control the IP. Either way, if you missed out on it, this might be a good chance to pick it up. It's May 18th. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Media Create sales in Japan. This, of course, is the weekly physical game sales over in Japan. This one will be for the week of March 26th to April 1st. Now, we're going to start with the top 10 games, as you're going to see here. Starting at the top, we have Super Robot Wars X. That is a Bandai Namco game released on the PS4 at 89,259. Far Cry 5, which, by the way, has had like the biggest opening ever for a Far Cry game from what Ubisoft said in a press release, is sitting there at number 2, 75,474 on the PS4. A Vita game, a PlayStation Vita game, look at that, in the top 3, Super Robot Wars X, again from Bandai Namco. It's a release alongside the PS4 version, 54,042. Kirby Star Allies still sticking in there pretty well at number 4, 50,437. That puts it over 350,000 units for its lifetime so far. Splatoon 2, which will never, by the way, drop out of the top 10, I don't think, ever in Japan, 25,639 units. Shining Resonance Refrain did launch there as well this past week on the PS4, 23,054. Ni no Kuni 2 has dropped from the number 3 spot down to the 7th spot, 18,851. I think it's going to be a harder climb for that game to 100,000 units, but I do think it will eventually get there. Detective Pikachu dropped from number 4 down to 8 at 15,584. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and then Monster Hunter World, which is still in the top 10, but it probably will fall out next week, is still up there. That rounds up the top 10. Moving over to hardware, the Switch is at the top, 44,033. That is down roughly a little over 6,000, so like 6,400 units or so down from the week prior. PS4, 25,325. That actually climbed only about 1,500 units despite all of those releases. I think it might be maybe reaching the roof for how many people actually want to buy a PS4 over there, considering even some of these big releases aren't really pulling it up anymore. 3DS, 10,209. The PlayStation Vita got a slight boost, probably from one of the only times I've ever seen any of its games in the top 3 at 3,992, and then the Xbox One dropped a bit down to 153 units. So overall, a pretty standard week. Nothing really major there. Far Cry 5 was pretty good there at the top number 2 spot, and then Super Robot Wars X at 1 and 3. That's a PS4 and then a Vita game. Man, that's good stuff right there. Kirby will probably stick around in the top 10 for quite some time, as he's done pretty well over there, and of course Splatoon 2. At this point, we're just waiting for it to hit 2.5 million, then probably eventually 3 million. I feel like when people buy a Switch over there, they pretty much jump right in and then grab Splatoon 2 because it's just such a popular game over there. But otherwise, pretty much status quo, nothing major on the hardware front. I'm interested to see that the PS4 really doesn't get boosted much by new releases anymore, outside of Monster Hunter, of course. I'm going to be more curious to see if anything happens for something like a Kingdom Hearts when that releases, but it's interesting to see that the PS4 really, I think it's getting to the end of its selling life in Japan, just because, I mean, there are over 6 million units. There's I think a lot of people who wanted a PS4 probably have one in Japan, and the Switch does kind of cater more to the handheld line, so it has a much higher roof than 6 million, as we're seeing, where people are still buying it a lot before even Pokemon comes out. So we're going to see the PS4 really does start to really drop off in Japan, but it's still sticking in at that between 20 and 30,000 units. Generally, it's just right around where it is. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today. Whether it is Spider-Man, maybe you're excited. All right, September release. First week in September, too, by the way. I'm in September 7th. I'm buying it. Are you getting the big, huge special edition, or are you just sticking with the regular? They announced DLC even before it even came out. That's a little annoying, too, right? They have like a digital deluxe version where you get the DLC and stuff, and it's DLC, I guess. That's announcing it before it comes out is a little like, eh. Also, let me know what you think about the Pokemon trademark. Are you excited about a possibility of a new Pokemon Rumble coming out for the Nintendo Switch? Maybe you liked them on previous systems and you're really excited for it. What about Hitman Definitive Edition? Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.